I'm Kate Hawker, and this is my third speech. Do curfews help keep teenagers out of trouble? Teenagers hate curfews. They think they should be able to be out till whenever and do whatever. When in all reality, the teenage years are when they're most likely influenced to do rebellious things and get into a lot of peer-pressured activities, like doing drugs, sexual activities, and drinking at a younger age. Honestly, I think parents are trying to set rules and have a curfew or more for their children to keep them from making bad choices. Looking at the early years, they would see students going out and driving around in their little buggies and hitting the town. Today it's more parties, drugs, and STDs that teenagers are into. What to look at is seeing if having a curfew will make them not end up like the 16 and pregnant girls or have a better reputation in decisions. Parents and teenagers have debated this topic for many years, and now it's time to see that curfews are the right way to go with teenagers by looking at the pros of having a curfew and plan versus all the cons. In the United States, teenagers that are 17 and under can be out till 12. But in Baltimore, West Baltimore to be exact, kids 14 to 16 have to be home by 10 on school nights and 11 on the weekends. This is believed to protect them from committing a crime or violating any other laws that could possibly happen after nightfall. For example, in 1994, teenagers who commit crimes or thought about committing crimes was reported to fall more than 20% to 30%. Then again, some larger cities have rejected the idea of curfews. New York is one of those cities. The police department decided that they could use it to crack down on truancy, the action of staying away from school without good reason. They also dropped it to catch more teenagers in the act of attempting a juvenile crime, which made the rate drop 30% in the last 3 years. People who also look at curfews look at the fact that a curfew is not just set for a reason to avoid crime. It is set because a lot of kids like to get out of the house to avoid family conflicts and fights. Meaning some kids that are out late night just need more help, like counseling. In Philadelphia, where Mayor Nooner recently extended a 9 p.m. curfew on Friday and Saturday nights for all unaccompanied minors in Center City and University City, the measure came on the heels of this summer's violent flash mob episodes, which seemed to have quieted down since then. But the city already had a youth curfew in place, long before the flash mob mayhem began. On weekdays, it was 9 p.m. for children under 13 and 10 p.m. for children 13 to 17. On weekends, everyone has to be home by midnight. The teenage years of an individual is marked by evaluating one's values, experiencing a shift in outlooks, and a tendency to act rebellious. It can also be a time when someone becomes exclusively vulnerable to negative influences, and it's magnetized towards dangerous situations. On the other hand, for parents, the period of their children's adolescence means regular worrying about their safety and formation as a citizen. Thus, the method of ensuring teenage security is needed. And curfews are often seen as such a measure since they have provided their efficiency. At the same time, certain things exist about establishing curfews for children. Since this is my topic, I decided to do a little research of my own and found conflicting studies and opinions about the outcomes of curfews. The U.S. Conference of Mayors surveyed mayors in 347 cities with curfews and found 88% of the surveyed cities found that curfews made their streets safer for residents, while only 72 of the 347 cities had daytime curfews. 100% of those cities showed a decrease in truancy and daytime crime. Gang-related problems also dropped in cities with curfews. 83% cited a decrease in the gang activity. The City of Atlanta recently announced its intention to enforce a long-standing teen curfew ordinance. Less kids 16 and younger roam the streets in the wee hours under the ordinance, and anyone younger than 17 can't be outside their homes without any adult supervision from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and from midnight to 6 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, many cities and countries across Metro Atlanta have similar regulations. So what are reasonable curfews for teenagers? While there are no hard, fast rules about when teens should be required to be home, the American Academy of Pediatrics have suggested that following guidelines: a curfew of 7 to 8 p.m. for children aged 12 to 13 on school nights, a curfew of 8 or 9 for children aged 14 to 16 on school nights, a curfew of 10 or 11 p.m. for children aged 17 to 21 on nights that have school or work the next day, and a curfew to 2 hours later than the above on weekends. Just because we have these curfews doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good thing or going to help anything. Some teens are known to drive to other towns that may not have a curfew or a longer one, so they can just do what they want until whatever time they feel like doing. Teens can get arrested for the crime they do, but in order to get arrested, they need to be found in the first place, which during the night is not the easiest. Sadly, those who have a job and people who might have plans later in the night will have to cut them short if they are under the age of 18. Curfews don't just punish the ones who need to be punished, but also the ones who are actually doing something right for their own lives. Pros for having a curfew make the parents feel like they have a grip of the rules and expectations for their teenager while they live under their roof. Crime is a big reason why we have a curfew set around the United States. But the curfew crime is out the question for most teenagers. Once they step out of the shadows, if they are past the curfew time, they can be arrested and sent home or just sent straight to a holding facility, which gives them plenty of time to think of the actions that they have just decided to make. Drugs are also huge because most of the time teenagers will decide to sneak out of the house and someone will hand over their fix that they are looking for. Since they know that drug dealers are going to be out bright and early and they can't have the drugs at home, sleep is another reason parents might decide to give their teenager curfew, especially during the school day. I know that's what my parents do. Teenagers need at least 8 hours of sleep, and if they stay out late, they might not get the sleep that they need and do well in school, or even get their homework done for the night. Big factors of wanting or needing a curfew is to test trust of the teenagers to see if they're going to do what they're told and be where they say they're going to be. Missing a curfew lowers the trust in parents, which means the curfew could get shorter or the teenagers will be constricted from doing what they want to do for a while. So if you think about it, there's a lot more pros to having a curfew. Just by looking at the cities who do have a curfew set in the communities, it's making for less violence and helping teenagers get on the right track for their lives. Teenagers will tell you themselves that curfews are like a time that is set for them to be somewhere on that time or early, which means it's teaching them time management and responsibility to get where they need to be, and it's up to them to make sure they are either on time or call ahead of time if they're going to be late. It is honestly a good idea, for it's an amazing way to get teens to show you how responsible they can be. So teenagers may hate curfews and think they should be out till whenever and do whatever, but their parents are honestly making it so they don't make bad decisions and get on the right track for their future. Then teenagers won't be out with the people who may most likely influence them to do rebellious things and get them into a lot of peer-pressured activities like doing drugs, sexual activities, and drinking at a young age. Let's change it back to the old days where teens are getting towards wanting a good degree and to work at a high-paying job than Burger King. Let's go back to hanging out with friends, to shoot baskets at the court, and soccer at the soccer field, having less missing kids, less kids thinking it's okay to do drugs or commit a crime. It is time to go to the road of responsibility and set teenagers up for life as an adult, where it's less about parties and more about getting ready to have a family and do the same for them as parents did for the teenagers today.